Coach Lee Hopkins. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I want to welcome you to the Engaged Employee Podcast. Our mission is to emphasize the relationship between the employee and the workplace with the goal of enhancing engagement levels to create a more productive and satisfying work environment. While many organizations strive to create a more engaging atmosphere, they often miss the mark by forcing connection with big team building events like axe throwing or escape rooms. Those activities only leave employees with a short-lived sense of belonging. Organizations may also try smaller and more suffocating events like happy hours or group birthday celebrations that their employees feel obligated to attend. As a social connections and business culture coach, I found that to create a stable, engaged, and productive workforce, there needs to be a shift in focus from mandatory fun and manufactured connection towards building trust and authentic conversation. Join me and a guest as we dive into social wellness strategies for the individual employee, techniques for developing interpersonal relationships with coworkers, and even some approaches for leaders to enrich the overall organizational culture. The Engaged Employee Podcast starts now. Hi, my name is Coach Lee. Welcome to the Engaged Employee Podcast. My guest today is Melissa Robinson-Winemiller. Melissa is an author, trained relationship builder, and empathy coach. She's also an international speaker who recently spoke at Cambridge and Oxford about empathy and leadership. She became interested in empathy and EQ after losing a career to an unempathetic leader. Her quest to understand what has happened to her led her to dig in deep in relationships between leaders and employees to gain a greater understanding of how we can increase innovation, productivity, and profit through the use of EQ and empathy. She brings 30 plus years of leadership experience, a doctorate in interdisciplinary leadership with a dissertation focus on empathy and leadership, and an MBA and Master of Data Analytics to back up her arguments with data-driven proof and sound business cases. Her book, The Empathetic Leader: How EQ via Empathy How Empathy Transforms Leaderships for Better Profit, Productivity, and Innovation, has just been released. Our conversation today will be focused on interpersonal relationships between coworkers and colleagues. Melissa, welcome to the Engaged Employee Podcast.
Hi, Coach Lee. Thank you so much for having me. Your whole intro, I was going, yes, yes, yes.
Yes.
All of this, yes.
Excitement. You all better be ready for this episode. If you're watching, you can just tell that she has some amazing things to share with you. She's got the flair. And so do I. Look, I'm busting out this amazing shirt today too. So
Yeah.
we're going to have a lot of fun together.
Yes, I'm looking forward to it very much.
Yes. And also you have the data background. I'm also working in data analytics too. So I definitely appreciate that. So I'd love to know, my audience will love to know, I gave you a bit of an introduction, but what is your profession? How did you find yourself doing this profession that you do, helping with EQ?
So it really wasn't a straight path because for decades, I was an orchestral musician. I played French horn.
Oh,
And yeah, completely different, right?
yeah.
And I taught at a university and I was really happy being that person. I loved being the artist and just ate it up and everything that went along with it because I loved the music. But I got my academic job. I got my first doctorate and got my professorship. And within my first term of being there, really within weeks, I was assaulted by one of my colleagues. And yeah, but the thing is even though that happened and it was awful, that was only the beginning because in trying to bring this to my leadership and trying to get people within that system to listen to me, it was basically 7 years of a slow death of my career. And
my God.
by the end of it, there was just nothing left. So I had to walk away from something I had done my entire life. So
Wow, that is definitely not a straight path, and definitely not what you planned on doing to make it to this point. And I'm sorry to hear about that you've turned this into something that's very powerful and important And so you found yourself with ruthlessly caring, unempathetic leadership. Those are people who are supposed to be caring about your well-being, supporting you, and they didn't do their job. They didn't do their job.
Yes.
And so it led you to create this whole new career for yourself, and empathy and EQ and understanding. I'd be curious to know, how do you help your clients who are in that kind of situation? And maybe um, the assault is not exactly what they've experienced, but still they're feeling unheard,
Yes.
unappreciated. What do you do? How do you help them?
Well, the thing with being through something like that is, empathy is when I can feel what someone else is feeling. That's what empathy at its basis is. So by having had that feeling, what I figured out is that it wasn't that initial occurrence that was the problem. It was in trying to talk to everybody afterwards and understanding that these were really good people that really meant well. And yet, for some reason, they just couldn't get a hold of what I was saying. And that's exactly what I find in a lot of employees today. That even as they're trying to talk to colleagues or management or people that go up, that it isn't that these are bad people. I mean, if you ask them or you ask their family, they would say, yeah, they have empathy, they're sensitive, they're kind, but there's a disconnect there. Somehow somebody is not being heard. And I really believe it starts with that empathic person to person connection. And that's really what I look at when I talk about taking empathy to be able to access your EQ skills. So when I go in and I talk to leaders, and understand when I say leaders, I don't necessarily mean the top level leaders. The people that I actually find are in the best position to make a difference are those in the middle positions, the ones who can both manage down and manage up. And someday will probably be in those top leadership positions. And that really understand at the grassroots what's going on and probably how to connect to both their employees and the people at the top. So the way I help them is by understanding how to use the empathy, connecting person to person, to be able to reach into their emotional intelligence skills to be better leaders. Now, the way I describe emotional intelligence, by definition, what it is when I can understand and control my own emotions and I can understand the emotions of others. So I think of it like a big tool bag, right? So your emotional intelligence tool bag has everything in it. It has communication, it has discipline, it has motivation, it has hammers and saws and chisels, and there's probably a bandsaw in there because it's such a big bag. Well, because I'm connected to people one on one, I now know how to reach in that bag and I know to pull out a chisel instead of a hammer. So now my leadership has gotten better, which in turn allows for my employees to have better productivity, better innovation, and creates better profits. Now, I work with people one on one as a coach. So I've actually seen this happen where someone will go in, and because they can create in person to person contact, what I also call a know, like, and trust factor, these people then in turn come to them and say, this isn't very efficient. We're boots on the ground and we see this happening every day. We can redesign this, we can redo that, and suddenly the flow of productivity is much better. Well, you're looking at innovation because you have people thinking outside the box, which in turn connects to productivity because now things are moving smoother and the employees have a stake in what's happening. So employee scores go through the roof, satisfaction scores, and also a lot of industry scores. So then to top it off, you end up with better profit. So why wouldn't you want to be able to connect with your people human to human? It affects and helps everybody.
Everybody wins because the company essentially makes more money. Everyone feels heard, understood, and want to work a little bit harder to a goal that matters to them because they're working with people that really care about what they think as well. So I love all the things that you're saying. And I really like how you tie it, of course, to the organizational component, because that is a big key to bringing this into organizations. Everyone wants to know what's in it for me. And if we were to say corporations were people too, they would say money, money, money. It's in it for me. Productivity, productivity. And that's just a fact. But we're also the people behind the scenes that are driving that force.
Yes.
And so connecting with those people, I really like what you had said about emotional intelligence. And so could you share a little bit, could we revisit that a bit about the difference between emotional intelligence and EQ?
They're actually the same thing.
Oh,
So they just call emotional intelligence EQ because it's supposed to be the component to IQ. So it's kind of just
ah,
how it's been named.
what I think I meant to say instead, let me clean that up and say empathy and EQ. Were those two different?
Yeah. Okay. So that's a really good question because this is where I do it differently. And I don't know of
Hmm.
anybody else who does this the way I do it. There was an author in 1985 who said there's this list of 5 things that comprise emotional intelligence and everything else is in this umbrella. And he lumped empathy into this bag of emotional intelligence. He said it's part of it. Now, I agree in that you're being smart about how you're using interpersonal relations, but I actually think empathy has to come first. I think empathy is the precursor to all of this other emotional intelligence and being able to use it. And as far as I know, no one else has pulled this out as a separate thing before.
Yes, that is fascinating. And I like that too. I would imagine to your analogy that it's the bag that you put your tools in. You have to have that bag first to have the awareness of they have emotions in the first place. And now here's how I use them with the tools. And it really, I love analogies. So it really, really hits home for me. So, with all of this, you've explained how it works out for the company, the individual, but I'd like to know if you could share an actionable step an individual can take towards creating this empathy or starting to understand EQ if they already have empathy. What are some actionable steps that they can take to start creating those relationships that are fulfilling?
Absolutely. And this is something that I actually teach at all levels for everybody because we get very engrossed in life and we forget to self reflect. So we're missing the self empathy part. And I know that sounds a little, backwards because if empathy is for me understanding what someone else is feeling, well, then I should already understand what I feel, right? But I find a lot of people get locked into the problems that are going on or are very driven and don't pay attention. They numb things out, whether it's through playing on the phone, watching TV, substances, all of the stuff that people do. So they aren't actually in contact with themselves, with their own emotions, with what they feel. And because they can't relate to themselves, they can't relate to anybody else. So the very first suggestion I make is that you need to self reflect. And it's not really going to be fun, probably. It's probably going to sting a little bit. But the more you can understand yourself, understand your own emotions and your own drivers and why things make you feel a certain way, you can then ask, well, if someone did that to me, how would it make me feel? And that's the beginning of empathy. So if there's one thing that leaders, employees, middle managers, everybody could do to begin to implement this, it would be to take the time to self-reflect and understand and own those feelings. If you start there, then you can connect with everyone else.
Very well said. And I'll bet that is one of those 5 skills, one of those traits that leaders might have. I understand that you have a free gift for individuals who visit your website. You tell them all about this EQ. Can you tell us a bit about this gift that you have?
You bet. So it's what I send is a video and part of an article talking about the top 5 traits that leaders can integrate now to be
Mm.
better leaders, to be better for their employees, and to get the stuff out of work that they want, like productivity, profit, and innovation. So because different people learn different ways, there's a video and some reading. But yeah, if you go to my website, it's right there. You can sign up and it goes to you right now. Because I think it's important to get that information out there and get people learning.
Absolutely. I'm right with you. We're so in line with everything you've said, learning about yourself before you can connect with others, all of those pieces. And I really believe that what you're doing is great work, helping people understand how it really hits the bottom line to bring more people on board with this and understanding how it's going to better everyone. Everyone. And I'm very excited about your book, also, The Empathetic Leader: How EQ and empathy transforms leaderships for better profit, productivity, and innovation. Can you give us a little bit of an idea of what we might find in that book?
Yeah. So that's a problem with a book, right? You can only cram so much into it.
Yeah.
But I talk a little bit about my system, which I call EQ via empathy, because it's tapping into EQ through the use of empathy. It just gets rid of some of those words in the middle. And being able to actually employ this in daily life. And I actually start the book by saying, if you're looking for 4 easy steps to better leadership, this is not your book, because this is something that you probably are going to have to do for the rest of your life. The self-reflection, the understanding, the hard work. But anything worth having is worth working for.
Right on.
This is that. And then I also talk a little bit about how you learn and how you integrate this stuff and how you make it habitual so that it isn't just a flash in the pan. It's a lifestyle. What I say is it's not an ending, it's a beginning. It's a practice because you do it every single day. So I've tried to put this all together in this book, and I'm actually hoping this will be the first book of many anyway, but you got to start somewhere.
You've got to start somewhere. We're all starting somewhere. So I love this idea of creating a awareness about you transforming into this person that you are going to be going forward, because it's a joy. In my experience, I found that it's a joy to discover something new about myself every day. Just go around and having experiences and learning more about myself and how I can connect with other people. And that didn't exist for me many years ago. That didn't exist for me. And it was very, very, very hard work initially. That's what you were saying at the beginning of your book. It's very hard work to actually want to even look in the mirror and do the self-reflection. But when I did it, after I practice it, it feels really great to even have this skill, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I'm looking forward to your book. It's already out. Actually, it's already out. So where can they find your book? You can find it on Amazon, right?
Yeah, it'll be on Amazon for sure. I'm told it will also go to Barnes and Nobles, but that I haven't actually seen yet. But Amazon for sure.
Amazon will be, the link will be in the show notes, everybody. The link is going to be in the show notes. You are going to get this book. I will not deprive you of that. Okay. Melissa, please tell us where they can find you.
So definitely my website, which is EQ via empathy. Oh, there it is. Yep, .com. And that's where you can sign up for the 5 traits that leaders need now. That's a very good place to find me because my email link is there and that sort of thing. I'm also available on LinkedIn. That's my primary social media, and Instagram. And I have a YouTube channel where I actually flesh all these ideas out and I get to talk about them and interact with people. And, I love it because people bring different ideas and different points of view. And the more people that I hear coming in and saying, yes, this is my experience too. Yes, I understand what you're saying. Yes, I didn't know what it was, but this hits it on the head. The more it just drives me to want to get it out there more. So any of those places, I am there and I'm always happy to interact.
Wow, fantastic, Melissa. I want to thank you so much once again. I want to remind you, audience, go get her book, The Empathetic Leader, How EQ via Empathy Transforms Leadership for Better Profit, Productivity, and Innovation. Thank you again, Melissa. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Coach Lee. This was fantastic. Keep doing your good work.
Thank you. You too. Take care.
You too. Bye for now.
Coach Lee Hopkins. My pronouns are another insightful episode of the Engaged Employee Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the deep dive into the world of employee engagement, leadership, and workplace dynamics. The Engaged Employee Podcast is brought to you by the Patterns of Possibility, where we help people make more meaningful relationships in both their personal and professional life. Before we wrap up, we want to extend our heartfelt gratitude to our incredible guests and, of course, our loyal listeners. Your support keeps us motivated to bring you valuable content each week. If you found today's discussion thought-provoking and want to learn more about how we can help you or your organization make more meaningful relationships, go to patternsofpossibility.com and book a friendly conversation with me. Or you can email me your questions at patternsofpossibility@gmail.com. Stay connected with us and engage with fellow listeners by following the Patterns of Possibility on LinkedIn. You can also catch us on YouTube. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell to stay in the loop. And if you prefer the audio version, make sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Your support means the world to us, and by subscribing, you'll never miss an episode. Thank you for being a part of our journey to create workplaces where passion meets productivity. Until next time, I'm Coach Lee. Stay engaged, stay inspired.